My fiery attitude and rage had pushed me to the point where I felt it was time to take action. AK Gurley lived one borough away from me. Eric Garner had just been across the East River. This epidemic was getting closer and closer, and before I knew it, I would be mourning the loss of one of my own, and I did not plan on attending my uncle's, father's, cousin's, or boyfriend's funerals anytime soon. The time for change was now, and I wanted to be a part of history. My friend stood next to me in the crowd of hundreds, the NYPD in front of us with the look of definite hostility. But I didn't care because I wasn't moving. This wasn't the 1960s where they could beat me for standing completely still with the poster in my hand. But then again, they did kill Eric Garner, Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, A.K. Gurley, and countless others. They is the police. Bestowed with a bunch of authority and power that they have no idea what to do with it. The very people that are recruited to protect our society and our people, they kill us. My friend held my hand tight. I looked up at him and I knew he was afraid. I could see the fear in his brown eyes, the cold sweat on his brow, and the quivering of his lips. But I had enough courage for the both of us, so I was not worried. I grabbed the megaphone, stepped right in front of a 6'5" NYPD officer and shouted the words, "Attention, New York City Police Department. This is a public service announcement that killing without a just cause is not in your job description. Therefore, you have been terminated." Despite my initial thought of disrespecting the officers present, because after all, not all of them were racist and not all of them were stone-faced killers, and not all of them were corrupt, I was standing up for myself and I was standing up for my people. I was standing up for justice just like all the other people around me, shouting, protesting, and rallying. I thought of my mother who taught me to never disrespect authority and never disrespect elders. Yet she also taught me to stand up for myself. All of these thoughts raced through my mind, and it seemed as though time had slowed down. I didn't know what to think or how to feel. I have felt insanely out of breath, however, but I decided to feel accomplished. Accomplished for finally having my opinion, finally having voiced my opinion, and having people that support my same opinions. Talk about critical thinking. This was not the time. Just as I was contemplating my inner decisions, I snapped back into reality. The crowd behind me roared of excitement, and at that moment, as I looked around, I had never felt more proud of my people. Seconds later, my zenith of power would soon disappear. It happened quicker than I could imagine. I was pushed to the ground. The hard cement greeted my face, luckily in a rather congenial way. I felt a sharp pain in my back, and in that moment, I thought I was being stabbed. I was a lot calmer than I thought I would be. I did not put up a fight. I barely moved. I realized I was being held down by a police officer. Confused, I just laid there with my hands on the ground and waited. Even though I displayed such an impassive and nonchalant attitude, I was struggling mentally. I wanted to respond differently. At least I had wanted to respond differently after the first 5 seconds, but I calmed myself down somewhat. The main reason I didn't kick and yell and scream was because I didn't want to give in. I did not want to react how that police officer thought I was going to react. Since black people are portrayed as violent heathens, he was expecting me to be a violent heathen. I would not be a part of that single story, and I would not go out of my character to accommodate this officer. It felt like I was laying there for an hour, but in reality, I was only on the ground for 2 minutes. My friend helped me up as I brushed myself off. The officer that had held me down stood before me, tall, stocky, black. My mouth dropped as I looked at him. My mind felt as if it had been shot open, as 1,000,001 thoughts rushed out, causing my hands to shake and my face to redden, yet I couldn't move. In front of me, 2 other police officers were holding down a young white woman and a child. The boy couldn't have been older than 10. I was too flabbergasted to speak. I could not believe my eyes. A white cop was holding down a white woman. This was too much to grasp. Was the NYPD doing this to seem as though they weren't racist? Having white cops assault white protesters and black cops on black protesters does not improve the image of the New York Police Department. This attempt to clear their name was unsuccessful because these officers were harming innocent, unarmed protesters, including children. If anything, these cops were making a more hostile environment and name for themselves. Protesters rallied around the officers' victims until the officers stopped. I looked around and my heart just cried. To this day, I have never been more proud of my race than I was that night. That night we exemplified resilience, grace, peace, and camaraderie. There was no violence on our part. This unselfishness married the likes of Dr. Martin Luther King and other people that made a difference in their era. We did it. That's what I thought that night. Taking the R train back home, I stepped onto the car with pride. Yet, most of the people, if not all, on the train had no idea what just happened, since probably could care less. As I took a seat, I looked around, observing the faces of people surrounding me. There were one, maybe two, that looked up at my friend and I. I looked in their eyes and I could tell they knew. It is amazing to think out of that entire train, no one knew what was taking place in their own city. People fail to educate themselves. They don't do their research. They rely on the media for their information that is often biased and false. That is how stereotypes are born. That is why racism continues to live in such a good condition. We must continue to protest. We must continue to voice our opinion. We must not cease to care and then wait until another controversial event takes place. It is up to us. We must make Dr. King proud and fight against the evils of racism, the evils of the single story, and the evils of the regression of society. Thank you.